Pele and Poli'ahu, a story of fire and ice. Now, you may not have ever heard this story, but I can tell you right now, this is the last Hawaii book that I have in the series. And I saved this for last because this is a story that every Hawaiian child knows. And it's something that they learn at school, just like we learn things like George Washington was the first president. This is part of the Hawaiians' beliefs. On the big island of Hawaii, there are two mountains, and one of them is very high, and the other one has fire. And this is the tale that the Hawaiians say why there are those two kinds of mountains. Long, long ago, on the island of Hawaii, lived two beautiful girls. Pele was a fire, and she lived on the slopes of Mauna Loa. Poliahu was the girl of snow, and she lived on the snow-capped peaks of Mauna Kea. Each of them wore great cloaks. Pele's cloak was fire red. Poliahu's was the icy color of snow. Separated from each other, they stayed on their own mountaintops until one day Pele, this one right here, decided to make some mischief. It was a beautiful, crisp day, a perfect day for sledding. Poliahu and her friends all went sledding. The girls' names were Lilihoe, Wailau, and, sorry, I can't read that one, Kaho'upokani. Kaho'upokani. What a difficult name that was, huh? And they all carried their holua, which are sleds made from koa. Down the snowy slopes of Mauna Kea, they'd go way down the mountain to a soft green hillside above Hamaka'ua. All of them were very good sled riders, but Poliahu was the best. When it was her turn to race, she leapt onto her sled and flew down the hill quickly, passing her friends. When the others finally made it to the bottom of the hill, guess what? They found Poliahu was there already, patiently waiting. As they began to climb again to the top of the hillside, a beautiful young woman appeared out of nowhere. Her dark red dress was the color of lava, and the haku lei she wore was made from the delicate blossoms of the ohia lehua tree. The snow girl whispered to each of their friends. They all said, "Who is this stranger?" The stranger asked if she could join their races. Well, these girls said, of course. They loved doing their races, and they were excited to have another girl come racing with them. It just sounded so fun to them. So here's what happened. The beautiful stranger jumped on her sled and raced the snow girls down the hillside. 3 times she raced each one of those snow girl friends, and every single time she would win. Feeling confident now, this stranger turned to Poliahu. "Do you want to try and race me?" Poliahu smiled and glanced up to the top of the mountain. "Why, it's a greater challenge. If you want, let us race way up on the top of the mountain, way past the snow even meets the grass, because up at the very top of the mountain, that was one long ride, wasn't it? But the stranger agreed to do it, and so both racers went down the mountain. The hair was flying in the wind. Now look real close at this picture. This is the sled, isn't it? And she's on this sled, and she's on this sled, and this is the mountain with the white on it and the black coming both ways. Both girls had dark black hair, and look how that hair is flying in the wind. They went so very, very fast. But in the end, it was Poliahu who had raced this race many times, and she won. Think the other girl's gonna be mad? I hope not. That's a sore loser, isn't it? Well, she was. This beautiful stranger got very angry. She threw her sled over the hillside. Her dark eyes turned very black. Her red cape crackled against her skin. The skies overhead began burning yellow, then orange, then red, and Poliahu watched in amazement as the stranger began to change right before her eyes. Their air around them went from warm to hot. Poliahu could feel the heat rising in her blood. The hillside they stood on just seconds ago, which had been so lush and green, began to dry up. The flowers wilted. The trees turned black and crisp, and leaves dropped to the ground and just sizzled and burned. That mountain started to shake and pulse like it was coming back to life. Beneath her feet, Poliahu could feel the earth was growing hotter and hotter, and suddenly she knew this stranger was her arch enemy, Pele, the girl of fire. Pele lifted her arms, calling out to the volcano. Cracks in the earth appeared and yawned wide open. Great rivers of lava, which is really, really hot ground, came up out of the ground. The sound the earth made as it shifted and opened up was like something these girls had never heard before. Swift-moving lava raced down the mountainside. You know, it was going to go all the way down to where people lived and cover all the people in the kingdom. And before you knew it, it would burn everyone up. So something needed to be done. Poliahu hurried up the slopes just as fast as she could go. From down below, Pele was throwing spears of red hot lava, which was melting the snow and ice. The edges of Poliahu's white cloak began to burn up. She could feel the fire against her heels. You know it's a hard thing to run up a mountain, right? Pretty easy maybe to run down. You can fall and slide, but she had to run all the way up the mountain. She tried so hard. She ran faster and faster, but Pele stormed on. She was now throwing giant balls of hot lava at Poliahu's cloak. Her cloak is her little cover that she had over her. Poliahu gathered her cloak behind her and jumped from side to side, barely missing the trails of the hot, burning lava that was trying to block her path home. Once Poliahu reached the top of the mountain, she turned around to see what Pele had done. Lava flowed as far as the eye could see. The ocean was boiling and steam hung over the bay in big, fat, yellow clouds. Even though her strong legs and arms were tired from sledding and running, Poliahu was not done. She needed to summon every ounce of strength she had left. She lifted her great white cloak and threw it right over the peak of the mountain, just like she was throwing a gigantic net out to the sea. Her cloak floated, and then it spread out over the top of the mountain. Earthquakes shook from below. Rivers of lava and waves of snow clashed beneath the sky. Pele could feel Poliahu's chill spread across the mountain. She tried to melt all the snow with her lava. She called for steam and fire to blow up the ground, but Poliahu's snow and ice were much too strong. Pele's red rivers froze. White snowflakes fell from above and put out the fires. Pele watched helpless as Poliahu's cloak unfolded and covered that mountain in white, and that was left. That made Pele's very mad, and she saw the narrow strips of black lava still reaching out to the blue sea. But Pele was getting cold. She shivered in the icy air. She looked at the white mountaintop that was shimmering in the sunlight. Streams of melted snow ran down the sides of the mountains into the valleys below. On the hillside, where they raced their sleds, Pele knew she had been defeated. She gave up this battle she started and went back to her own mountain. She was hot and smoldering, and she knew her mountain would be just like that. Poliahu looked at her friends. "Let's go home," she said. They gathered up their sleds and hiked back up the slopes of Mauna Kea. When they reached the summit, the snow girls turned back and looked at the sea. They could see where Pele lived. They knew, although she had been defeated, it was not the first time they were going to hear from her. Even to this day, Pele tries to take over Poliahu's side of the island. But as long as Poliahu reigns, and as long as the snow mountains keep their mountaintop cool, the island of Hawaii is able to live in peace. I've been to the big island of Hawaii. It's not where I am right now, but I've been there before. And I've been up to the first mountain, Mauna Kea. You go way, 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 way up the mountain. In fact, I believe it's the tallest mountain in the whole United States. And when you get to the top, you can't breathe very well. And I was with my husband, and he was gasping for breath, and then he started laughing. It was like he had laughing gas or something. He thought everything was so funny. He pointed to a little plant that was by the side of the road, and he said, "Look at that funny plant." He was just silly from being up in such thin air so high. I've also been to the mountain on the other side of the island, Mauna Loa, and when I was there, I saw the lava flowing. It was flowing out to the sea. A couple years ago, that lava got so crazy, it actually burned people's houses down. So Pele is busy causing the mountains and all of her mischief, and Poliahu is up at the other mountain, living in the snow. Aloha. That's the end of my story. I hope you've enjoyed the Hawaii series that we've done. Do you remember how to say shaku? And you remember everything aloha means? I hope so. Good night.